Good morning, everybody. It is bright and early this morning. We have just gone 7 a.m. and I wanted to... Oh yes, hello. I was going to say I wanted to get filming really early today because it's beautiful weather and I really want to get outside to enjoy some of it, but I also have things to do. I'm ready, cat, like looking after the babies. Hello. Today I am going to be doing a bit of a review slash reflection on some true crime, I guess documentaries that I have been watching. I have talked about how I want to incorporate a few more things onto my channel, like including my interests and my hobbies, and I am very into pretty much all things true crime. So I watch these documentaries anyway, pretty much constantly, whether it's on Disney Plus or Netflix or YouTube. I watch a lot of YouTube. And I figured it would be just kind of nice to do like a little bit of a review on some of them. So all of the ones that I'm going to be talking about today are on Disney Plus. So that's all. Hello. You made me lose my train of thought. You're so cute. So I have written down a bunch of notes for each one on my phone as per usual. I'm just wondering if I'm going to actually be able to focus with Bruddy Cat in my lap. Hey, hello. You're so cute. Are you being needy this morning? Someone needs extra love this morning. That's okay. So I watched 5 and I took down just a few notes for each, and it's not necessarily like all of my thoughts about the cases. Some of them are about like the documentary itself, so please do take what I'm going to say with a grain of salt. Obviously people are not all going to agree on my points of view on these things, and that's okay. I'm not intending to... Hello, now I have both cats. I'm not intending to offend anyone or come off insensitive. I just really wanted to discuss what my thoughts were on these things as I was watching them. So let's just dive into it. The first one I watched, and this is what started all of this because I kept seeing ads for it and I was really intrigued, and it was Devil in the Family, The Fall of Ruby Franke. So that is 1 season, it's 3 episodes long. And what did I say? I thought it was a perfect representation of only being able to see what people allow you to see. So very much, I know that people post on YouTube a lot, and you obviously, like, you have your people that you like and you get to know them, or you feel like you get to know them through watching their videos, especially these like family vloggers, people who do like day in the life, weekly vlogs, daily vlogs, things like that. You do get a sense of like knowing this person, you feel like you're friends with them, but it is very, very much only their internet persona of them. So as much as you love these people and you come to depend on these people or find them a people like a person of comfort in watching their videos or things like that, it is just like a reminder that you don't actually know that person. You only know the internet side of that person or what they've allowed the internet to see. Too much of a good thing can be poisonous, and that's not internet and fame related, I don't think. I think that's just anything in general. Like, too much good food can affect your health. Too much, exercise can make you unhealthy if you overdo it. Too much fame and stardom can go to your head and poison you as a person, I think it was just a really good reminder that everything should come in moderation, I think is probably the best way to put that. Oh, this one. They said in the documentary that the children were given $10 for every video that they helped with. And that was just like blatant, like in your face, like obvious exploitation of the children, especially once they had voiced that they no longer wanted to be on camera. So not only was it like, you're going to do all this work and we're going to earn all this money and you only get $10 of it, but it's also you've expressed that you no longer want to do this work and I'm going to A, force you to, or B, bribe you to by saying, do you want $10 or not? It's kind of like, I know they're just children, but if this was an adult situation, that would be, financially controlling the situation. And I think, even though they are kids and obviously they don't have bills and stuff that need to be paid, it is a form of like coercion and control and bribery, and it just, the fact that that was just like on camera and played, like that blew my mind because it's just so blatant, and like no one saw any of that going on behind the scenes, but these poor kids are thinking, if I don't do this, I'm going to get yelled at. If I do it and I do it wrong, I'm going to get yelled at. You know, I don't want to do this. She's making me do this. Oh, I suppose, like, I get $10 out of it at the end, you know? And it's just, oh, it gave me such a grimy feeling. My next thought's one that may or may not be seen as controversial, because what I took at the end of the documentary is that it came across as the husband or the father and the son still had like a lot of love for her as a person, regardless of what they've been through. But what I kind of interpreted it as, or saw it as, is that they have a love very much for the person that they knew pre-YouTube, you know, the mother that she was pre all of this drama. They have like a longing or a nostalgic feeling for the old days, or the mother and the woman that they knew pre all of this. And I think that's what they're looking for, or what they're wanting back, or what they're hoping would come back, I suppose, if there was any sort of relationship there still. And it was really sad to see. It was like they all seem like good people in that family. Like, I'm not trying to sugarcoat it or be too nice or appeal to anyone. They do. The three that are in the documentary, they seem like good people, and they've had a rough fucking go of it, especially those boys. They were so brainwashed and controlled and like kept under her thumb so much, and I can see why they still have that love and that feeling for her, because it's ingrained into her. I would just like to think that they can see what has gone down and they understand that she's not that person anymore. I just hope that they all heal from it, all three of them. Well, I mean, there's other children as well, they weren't in the documentary because they're a bit young, but that whole family, I just hope they heal not only as people but as a family, and they find a way to move forward from this. I think the documentary was wonderful. I was glued to this. I watched this documentary so quick. I had so many thoughts on it. I was just so absolutely dragged into it. And I think it's because I have like watched family vloggers in the past. I don't watch them anymore, just because that's not me. I'm not judging anyone who does. But it was just so weird to me that it was like, you know, she was one of those big family vloggers and all of that was going on behind the scenes. It just blew my mind. Just absolutely wild to me. And I'm really glad that I watched the documentary, because it was very informative, very, very sad, very sad. But I think I learned a lot, and it's made me a little bit more cautious about who I watch now. So I don't know if you call that educating. Maybe it was educating. But yeah, if you're thinking about watching this one, I would definitely recommend this one. I think it was a very, very well done documentary. Get it, chicken. Get it, chicken. Okay, the second one is called Murder in the Dorms. So this was 2 seasons and there were 12 episodes. I believe there was 6 in every season. 6 in each season. Jeepers. Straight up, the first thought I wrote down was, it made me glad I never went to university. And that is, she's gone wild this morning. That was purely just my thought. Obviously this whole documentary series is based on people who were murdered while at university, living in dorms or on college campuses, or even just houses that weren't necessarily on campus but were like, you know, filled with college roommates and things like that. So that was my first thought, was glad I never did that, because I'd never be in that situation. Not making light of it, obviously, but, you know, I think everybody has that thought of, I was very, very sad for the people it did happen to, but thank God it was not me. I did notice the reoccurring theme that literally everybody in pretty much every episode had said they felt so safe, so relaxed, so welcome in the environment, that they loved their schools and they loved the people they were around. They were all there to just learn, and not only obviously their degrees or whatever they were studying, but as themselves as people as well. And there was just, everybody was saying, you know, these environments were so safe. There was no history of this. They all just felt so loved and welcomed, and like they were such a big family. And I think that made it all the more sad, is because you knew these people genuinely could never ever see anything like this happening or anything, you know. And I think that really kind of not kind of, it does. It makes it a million times worse because you're just so blindsided, I think. And it made me sad. It really did, because these people truly loved where they were and the stage of the life that they were in, and it just, yeah, I think it made it worse for me. I did try and write down as many as I could remember, like organizations and charities and stuff that came about after these people's deaths, and obviously it's not a great thing. You don't want it to have to happen because you don't want that person to have been murdered. But I did notice a very reoccurring theme, that the family and the friends and the schools went on to create things in their honour that have done so much good in the world. And I have to read it directly from my phone because I can't remember them all, but there's the One Love Organisation Against Domestic Violence, the What's My Name Foundation, Sammy's Law, Jenna's Blessing Bags, the Max Groover Foundation, and the Max Groover Act or law that made what happened to him a felony, and the Natasha Norman Foundation walk. And there were probably many more that I didn't write down, but all of those things came about after these horrific events had happened. And the reason that they exist is not great, but they have done so much good for the world since. Like, they've raised money, they've raised awareness, they have provided people with the things that they need, they've prevented these crimes from happening to other people and allowed people to actually get punished for these crimes correctly and bring justice to the families and things like that. And that was just, I think, the best part of this whole documentary series was the mention and the attention that they paid to those kind of things, because I don't want to say it's heartwarming or it made it worth it or anything like that, but it has done so much good that those people would be proud. You know, the victims would be proud, I think anyway, that people are learning and things are being done to make the world a better place, even in their absence. Just, I don't know how to word that any better than that, I'm sorry, but those are my thoughts. Season 1, Episode 4, the Michael Deng, I think I'm saying that right, I'm so sorry, fraternity murder? Fucking wild, bro. And it wasn't even the only one in the series. I'm pretty sure there was 2 cases of fraternity murder, and both of them are just wild to me. I don't want to say too much because this is another documentary series that I genuinely would recommend that you go and watch, not only because it's so informative, but because they do so much justice for each one of these cases. They're all so lovingly covered and put together, and there's effort and care taken in every single one of these cases, and I think that's so important. But those fraternity murders, if you can't tell, this program, it had me in the feels so much. I think I cried. I was gonna say every second episode, but I genuinely think it was almost every episode. And that's what I mean by they were put together so well. Each episode is done so well. There's family and friends and investigators who you can tell genuinely gave a fuck about this case. In every single one too, there was not a single case that I was that felt brushed over or done just to make up numbers or something like that. Everything was so well handled, so lovingly put together that, and hearing people speak about the unfortunate victims, and how much they were loved and cherished and what great people they were, I can't, it's so sad. This is one of those documentaries that will genuinely have you in your feels because it is so sad all the time, but I do think it's a very good watch, and I would 100% recommend it to anybody. I think Chicken has a toy under the bed. She's running around like a lunatic. I don't know if you can hear her. Okay, the third one was called Perfect Wife, there she goes, The Mysterious Disappearance of Sherry Papini. This was 1 season, 3 episodes, and this is a case that I actually knew about beforehand. So I picked this documentary because I wanted to see how they did it, basically, because I've heard this case talked about on different YouTube channels, crime YouTube channels and things like that, but I wanted to see how an actual documentary handled it, and it was very interesting, and I think it was pretty well done. This is one of the few cases, and like this might sound like an asshole, but this is one of the few cases where I genuinely have never ever like suspected the husband. Ever. I never had a doubt at any point. Even hearing this case previously, before watching this documentary, I have never ever suspected that the husband did this. And I think because they spent, like, you know, obviously when a wife goes missing or a husband goes missing, the spouse is the immediate suspect. Suspect is the word. This is one of those cases where I was just like, nah, wasn't him, not a thing. And they tried to make it look like he was him. There were people that said he was violent, you know, they had issues, and maybe they did, but in this situation, my brain just went, I don't know the difference, so someone please educate me. I probably could have Googled it before filming this video, but it very much felt like Munchausen's, or like Munchausen's by proxy. I don't think it's by proxy because she did it to herself. I think it's just Munchausen's. I don't know. I need to educate myself a bit better on that. But it very much did feel like, from what you heard, she just wanted attention, even if it was negative attention, especially if it was negative attention, you know? She wanted people to see her, to pity her, to love her. She wanted to know what people thought of her at all times. I personally think that she's horrifically narcissistic. She did things like, okay, if you're not familiar with the case, I'm going to spoil it for you. She staged her own kidnapping and abuse, and then came back fucking ages later and was like, oh my god, I was kidnapped and abused, when actually she did it all to herself. She arranged it all herself. She made it all happen. Okay, thank you, Rusty. He's smooching the camera, my good boy. Yes, hello. But like when she came back, they hosted like a party that, you know, I can't handle this case. This case makes me wildly angry. They hosted a party as like a welcome home type thing, but it wasn't really a welcome home. It was, please tell me how you found out that I was back, and like reenact it so that I can know how like happy you were that I was back. That's what I mean by like, I feel like she's horrifically narcissistic. There were so many things that were kind of glossed over as well. Like when you got to the final episode, and it was kind of near the end as well, they talked about her drugging the children, which is why I think I low-key thought it might have been like Munchausen's by proxy a little bit, because she was like drugging her children literally to make them ill so that she could be like, oh my god, you're not feeling well, you know, like, and that was sort of just glossed over. I do sort of wish that there was a little bit more information on that, or a little bit more like, because I felt like it was sort of just dropped in there right at the end as like, oh, she did all this and this is really terrible. Oh yeah, and she did this thing too, you know, but she's already a bad person, so we don't have to talk about it. Like, I wish they had talked about it more, because what the fuck? Do you mean she was drugging her children? And then, oh, I don't know. I don't know. I just felt so... Are you good? I just felt so bad for the husband and the dad throughout this whole case, because all he cared about was his wife coming home. You know, that's all he wanted. He was looking after his children. And then when she did come home, he was so happy to just have her back that he did everything he could in every instance, you know. He did everything right. And it was all kind of like thrown in his face at the end. And that poor man, I want to give him the biggest hug in the world, you know, like, it was so hard. And then right at the end, he does like a walkthrough of the house that she was captive in, that she was living in while she was pretending that she was being abused and stuff like that. I mean, don't get me wrong, she was physically harmed, she was abused, she did starve, blah, 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 but it was all self-orchestrated. That's why there's absolutely no sympathy from me. I don't give a fuck, you did it to yourself, whatever. But watching him walk through that house and actually see where she was, and you know, like, you could just tell he was so like overwhelmed and blown away and overstimulated. There was probably so much going on in that poor man's head, and you know, now he has to live his life and raise his children and focus on all of these things. And I just, like, I don't know, I feel so bad for him. This is another one of those cases that is, I think this case is very sad, but not in terms of the victim at all. This is one of the ones where the impact that it's had on her family and the people who were left behind, I suppose, is far, far greater, and she didn't even pass away, you know? And I think it's just wild to me. This is one that I would recommend watching, but even if you don't have like Disney Plus or anything like that, I would look this up on YouTube because other people cover this case as well. I definitely think from the cases I've seen on YouTube versus the Disney Plus documentary, the documentary is superior. There's far more information, there's more detail, especially about like what followed and things like that. So I would recommend that, but definitely just investigate this case in any way, shape or form because it's a mind fuck of a case. Okay, second to last one. This one is called Still Missing Morgan. It's 1 season, 4 episodes, and I don't typically watch ones that are like unsolved because it grates me. I don't like cases that aren't solved, and I'm sure literally everybody feels the exact same way, but it's gonna live in my brain for forever, and I just wish there was some way that I could solve unsolved cases, or, you know, but I thought I'd give this one a try, and I'm glad that I did. I don't know if that's a weird thing to say, but it's a very, very well done documentary. It's another one that's very sad. I don't think I cried watching this one, but I was probably very, very close. I don't have a whole heap of notes on the documentary itself. I will just say that I think it was so well done. It's just one of those cases that is frustrating because there's like almost enough for them to have something, but just not. And you know, it's one of those series where this is 4 episodes long, and you know, they don't solve this case, so what do you talk about for 4 episodes? But they did it. They talked about different stuff every episode. They followed up every lead. You've seen how different detectives had worked it from different angles over the different years, because this is a cold case that's been going on for years and years, and it's so frustrating because like the really good piece of evidence they had is just like, you know, if you had seen it at the time, I don't know, it's one of those ones that's frustrating and you wish you could go back and do something about it. First actual thought that I wrote down instead of word vomiting was, I've never seen a more devoted parent or pair of parents than the mothers in this docu-series, because they didn't just talk about Morgan, there was another little boy that was missing as well, I believe. And you can just feel their love for their children through the screen. I have never seen parents in a documentary just more devoted to their child. Like these 2 mothers that they showed were like, their whole lives were about finding their children and finding other children, because that's another thing that happened is another, I suppose, good thing that came of this was they started looking for other missing children because they were still missing theirs. And it's just absolutely wild. Like literally every time Morgan's mum came on screen, it was just, you almost felt like you could reach out and hug her, you know, because she was just so raw and so like purely not emotional about it all, because I think she's obviously dealt with it for a very long time. But you know, she was just so open and so ready to talk about her daughter and all of that stuff, which a lot of people probably find very hard, filming a documentary talking openly and honestly, but Morgan's mum just, ugh. Seeing all the resources at work was something that they did, because obviously, like I said, they didn't solve this case. At least to my knowledge, it's still not solved. But they showed you the processes of what they did, you know, looking up everything, looking into everything, processing everything. It's probably the first documentary that I've seen it all like so in depth, like each little process and how things happen. And that was honestly just really interesting to me, watching what like investigators and detectives and stuff go through to actually get results back and get things done. It was quite interesting. Like, I think if you're into that kind of stuff, you should watch this documentary purely based off that aspect of it. I feel like it's in about episode 3 they go into probably the most of it, but yeah, it was fascinating. And then following along with like the parents, the detectives and the investigators were like just as good. Not only were they great people for this case, you can tell that they are actually emotionally involved. Like, these people have their own children and they put their love for their children into finding this little girl. Like, I have very, very rarely seen a set of investigators that have genuinely been so devoted to a case as this one. You know, you saw when they were looking for her, when they had a lead, they'd get excited. When they were testing things, there was actual like angst and edge that you could feel through the screen, and every time they didn't find something, there was visible, audible, like emotional disappointment from these men and women, but primarily men who you see in the documentary. It makes you root for them. Like, and I know, like, the name of the documentary is Still Missing Morgan. It's very, very obvious that they do not find her, but every time something happens, every time they had a lead or they looked for something, it made you want it more. It made me more invested. It made me more, like, disheartened when it didn't happen, you know? I just think the right people are working that case. And it just, like, I wanted it so bad. I feel like what I was feeling is what everybody else was feeling, and it's very, very rare for me that a documentary can portray that and get me drawn in quite that much. And just to wrap up on this one, I personally believe she was taken by the man in the red truck. They did do like a big full test of a truck in there, and I don't believe they didn't get anything conclusive out of it. There was either not enough of the samples or not enough to like definitively prove that she was in the truck. It's all sort of like up in the air. Yes, it's possible, but no, we can't be 100%. I'm 99% sure she was taken by the man in that truck. Just my point of view. Maybe you should watch it and tell me what your point of view is below. Just saying. I feel like it's another one of those days where I low-key just look sick. And I'm not. I think my nose is just red because hay fever. It's actually cold here. I'm wearing pants. Pants! In Australia. Jeans, nonetheless. Anyway, I have one more case to talk about, and this one, my view, is possibly going to be not well received. And honestly, that's okay, because everyone has their own opinions. Can we just remember that, please, and be kind in the comments? This one is called Keeper of the Ashes, the Oklahoma Girl Scout Murders. 1 season, 4 episodes. And I have heard of this case before as well, but I had heard it like from YouTube. Same as the other one, YouTube cases and things like that. It's genuinely, it's such a sad story. Like, I can't word it any other way. It's honestly, it's heartbreaking what happened to those poor little girls. And you can see in the documentary that the families are still very, very much affected. I don't think having your little girl taken away from you in such a violent and random way is ever something you're going to get over. But just seeing the families talk about them was so sad. Like, it breaks your heart. I personally would have liked to know more about the girls themselves. They did do like an introduction on each of the girls, but I would have liked to see more. You know, this case is about those girls, and I know they weren't very old, but you know, they had interests, they had hobbies, they had loves, they had, you know, their own life's worth of accomplishments, and I wanted to see more of that. You know, I wanted to know more about the girls and the families and everything. You know, I didn't feel as emotionally connected to this one because I feel like, and again, like, people are probably not going to agree with me on this, but I feel like in this documentary, they did not focus as much on the victims and who these girls were, which I think was sad, because obviously the whole documentary is about them. I wanted to know more about them. I do wonder in this case if the victims' families found any sort of comfort or support in each other at all. They may have talked about it and I just missed it, but I know that obviously they had, you know, each other if they were, because some of them were like, you know, wife and husband. Not everyone had that, but, you know, it does kind of make me wonder if they ever, like, spoke to each other or got to know each other and found that kind of common ground so that they had that sense of support from someone else who literally was going through the exact same thing, because quite often in the documentary you heard people say, you know, oh, I would try and talk to my friends, but they either just wouldn't get it, or they'd get so upset that I was more comforting them than them comforting me. And I just, yeah, I don't know if they covered that at all. I don't know if they would have wanted to be friends or close with someone who reminds them of that situation so clearly, but me personally, I feel like if I was in that situation, it would be nice to have someone who truly understands what I'm going through and someone that I can speak to about it. I kind of wish I either missed it or they had talked about that a little bit more. I think their coverage of the scene was good, like what actually happened at the scene. They spoke to like some of the counsellors and stuff that were at the camp, and they gave very, very good detail and descriptions of what happened and the timeline and things like that. That was all covered very, very well. I'm not saying that they missed anything in that regard. But yeah, I think in terms of like the girls and the families, kind of like the relationships side of it and the aftermath side of it in terms of the family's like development and growth and stuff, I kind of wish I just had more in that part. They did cover the scene and the forensics section and everything pretty well. Again, I probably would have liked a little bit more on it, but it was all there. Everything you needed to know was there. This is another case that there's no real closure on. There's a very, very big community of people who like have a main suspect in mind for who did this. I think at one point they had even like arrested and tried to try the guy who they think did it, but it's one of those ones where you can't really be certain. I personally think he did, but that's just me, and I know a lot of people are not going to agree with that. I'm not going to go naming names because I don't need the backlash from that, but yeah, the main suspect that they talk about in this documentary, I personally agree that I think he was the one who did this crime. That's just me. If you don't agree, that's absolutely fine. I do think that 90% of this documentary was political. It was talking about who they thought the victim was, who they thought he could be or could potentially not be, and the impact that that had on the community, and then the impact that obviously the opinions of the people in the community had on the case and of them trying to try the person and arrest the person and things like that. How many episodes was this? 4 episodes, and I struggled to get through this one because I felt like it wasn't focused on the case itself. It definitely, obviously, you do have to talk about the politics side of things because they influence the case and how the case goes forward. But I don't think that should have been the main focus, and to me it very much felt like it was. It felt like probably 2.5 out of 3 of these episodes was about people didn't think it was this guy, people thought this was racially fueled, people thought this was us just picking a scapegoat, you know, rather than what the actual evidence says. Unfortunately, I do think one of the parents of these poor girls was accosted quite a bit with people being like, you're just blaming this guy and it's not even him, rah rah rah, which should never ever happen, by the way. If you are one of those people that targeted that mother and tried to coerce her when she had absolutely nothing to do with the investigation herself, you're a terrible fucking person and you should feel bad about that. I feel like it was important to talk about and important to note, but I feel like it should have been contained to like 1 episode at most. It really, for me, dragged away from the story and the reason that we were there in the first place, which was those little girls. And the last bit to me, this is the part that people are probably not going to agree with. There was a celebrity as part of the series, and I don't know if she funded it or if she had like something to do with the making of it. I'm again not going to name her. If you want to know who it is, go and watch it for yourself. It just felt so forced. She was a little girl at the time and she was supposed to go to the camp, but she couldn't go because she was sick, I'm pretty sure. So she has this like lingering feeling of, I could have known those girls, that could have been me, I could have been part of that situation, but ultimately she wasn't. She repeatedly would say that she wanted to solve the murder or find more clues, but I feel like there was no actual investigating on her part. Like there was like one part where they went out to the woods and looked at a tree, but I'm like, that's not following leads, that's not investigating, that's not being a part of it. You know, she talked about her memories of the time and how things helped her and stuff. It didn't sit right with me. And I get that she was there, I get that she lived in the town, that she dealt with the after effects of, you know, everything going on, trying to find the guy, all that kind of stuff. But she kept talking about like her relationship to the case, and it's like, other than emotional, you don't have one. Like, other than you telling yourself that could have been me, it wasn't. And a lot of the times when they showed her she was talking about music and talking about singing, because she's a very, very famous singer. She's obviously incredibly talented. In that like setting and everything else, I actually really like her. I think she's fantastic, but it just felt like it didn't belong, like it didn't fit. Like there were sections where she was talking about like music school and singing and tutoring children and things like that, and it didn't fit for me. It was weird. Maybe it's just me and people absolutely loved it, but I just couldn't. It felt very like, is juxtaposition the correct word? Because there's this case and then there's this person. And it felt like, and this probably isn't even her fault, because I'm not gonna lie, it was probably just directed and edited and put together this way, and she just did what she was told. But it very much felt like two different TV shows that they've tried to mesh together, and every time it came on it was like, why the fuck is this here? You know? And that's probably really harsh, because I like her as a person, but I think this case is really, really important, and I just felt like it felt icky to me. And I know that wasn't the way that it was supposed to be, but it just it didn't fit. I personally, in terms of this case and like the information and stuff, I would not recommend this documentary. I think if you want to know more about the Oklahoma Girl Scout murders, you would be better finding someone to talk to you about it on YouTube. There are quite a few channels who have covered it, and I've seen it quite a few times from different points of view, and I think personally this documentary on Disney Plus is the worst portrayal of it, personally. I would much rather watch it on like a YouTube channel, because it focuses purely on the case and the girls and the facts, and that's what I'm after when I watch these kind of TV shows. And that's what I mean by people might have different opinions, because this was a bit of a different take on, you know, how to approach one of these documentaries and how to put one together. And for some people I feel like it could be a breath of fresh air. It could be something different, something that they really like, something that calls to them. But for me, I'm a very facts, figures, black and white, I want to know exactly what happened, exactly what's going to happen going forward sort of thing. So for me, this style of documentary just wasn't my thing. And that's okay. My review might have been a little bit harsh, but that's my review. It doesn't have to be yours. But anyway, that is, that's that. That is my first sort of like review. There you go, chicken. That's my first sort of like review on true crime documentaries, I guess. I do watch a lot of these, and I'm gonna continue watching them, so I think I probably will do a few parts to this series. My thought is sort of to just do like 5 documentary reviews per like episode. And I think that's going to be really fun. At the moment I am sticking to ones that are on Disney Plus. I do already have my next 5 lined up, and I've started watching them. And that's purely because I'm cheap and I don't like to pay for more than one subscription at once. So when I'm done on Disney Plus, I think I'm going to move over to Netflix, do a few on there, because I know I typically really like the ones that are on Netflix. But I could also do maybe some like YouTube reviews on cases and things like that. There's also podcasts. I do listen to a lot of podcasts, so maybe I could do like a review on the ones that I'm watching. Maybe not episodes, just like podcasts in general. I don't know. I'm still kind of figuring it all out, if you can't tell. I don't really think things through before I start them. So this is episode 1 of my like true crime series review thingy. If you liked it, please leave me a comment down below letting me know, because I do need to know what you guys want to see on this channel. And if you don't want to see any more of this, let me know now before I waste my time filming it all. No, I probably will upload a few, just because I think they're really fun to do, and I really like watching this kind of stuff, so I feel like I might as well make use of my time while I do it. So let me know what you think anyway. If you have any specific cases that you want me to look into, or any documentaries that you think I might like that I can watch, let me know, because again, always looking for things to watch. And other than that, I will see you in my video next week. If you want to make sure you get a notification about it and you want to see more of my content, make sure you subscribe. That is the easiest way for you to find me again. I will see you next time. Bye bye.